Tax season is upon us. April 18th is the deadline for filing your 2022 tax returns with federal and state governments. In this week's In-Depth, we find out what you need to know about changes to tax policies and get a few tips from Reese Wetzel and his panel of guests.
Taylor, thank you. Today we are joined by two guests who can give us more information on tax filing season here in Oklahoma. We are joined by Amanda Bolgren, the Director of Income Tax Accounts for the Oklahoma Tax Commission, and we are joined by Joshua Jensen, or also known as JJ the CPA. How are you guys doing today?
Good. How are you?
Doing pretty good.
Thanks for having us on.
Yeah, glad to have you guys here. We're going to jump right into it. Amanda, I just want to start with you. First off, let's just talk about some resources that you guys offer, the Oklahoma Tax Commission, to Oklahomans who are filing or business owners in Oklahoma who are also filing.
Sure. So first I would say our OTC website, it has great resources. There is a specific section where you can go. It's called Reporting and Resources, and it'll tell you everything you need to know, whether you have a business, whether you're just an individual filing and looking for how to conduct your filing. Maybe you want to do it online. We also have our TRC, which is our Taxpayer Resource Center that people can go. They can call or they can walk in, and we will be there to help you.
Yeah, and that's just open 5 days a week. Anybody can kind of come in and get help?
Yeah, so we always recommend you schedule an appointment, which you can do on our website, just to make sure you have a person to speak to, but yes.
Great. All right, JJ, we're going to go to you next. So tax season's always changing. So tell us a little bit, what's different from filing last year versus filing this year? Is there any important changes that Oklahomans should know, and what do you think is the most important change?
Well, great question, because there's been a lot of changes, starting with we do have higher deductions in 2022 compared to 21 for the standard deduction, let's say, for example. But there's a few things that, because of the pandemic, we had some big tax credits in 21 that are not around in 22, specifically the child tax credit. So in 21, that was up to $3,000 for those that were over 5 years old, up to now under age 18. But then if they were 5 or under, it was $3,600. But we're back in 2022 to the tax credit of $2,000 for each child. Also for daycare expenses for child care, the amount of that child tax credit in 21 was huge because more expenses qualified and the credit was larger and part of it was refundable. So in 22, we're just back to the normal tax credit, which is only up to $3,000 of expenses for each child. And then everybody could deduct charitable contributions up to $600, let's say, for married filing jointly in 21, and that deduction has gone away, and that was something that you could do even if you didn't itemize. And so tax credits reduce down your tax dollar for dollar. So with those being less, that's going to probably be the biggest impact we're seeing in 22 compared to 21.
So Oklahomans with children, they can maybe expect a little less this year compared to the pandemic years, is what you're saying.
Correct, but it's not because of the Oklahoma Tax Commission. It would all be because of the IRS changes.
All right. Well, Amanda, now that's kind of an important thing, you know, a lot of information there. So Oklahomans are filing their taxes. What is some of the paperwork that they need to make sure they have ready and prepared when they go to file?
Sure. So make sure, obviously, you have your W-2, 1099s, whatever, whichever coordinates to you. Also, anything that you utilize that has your income. So maybe your check registers or anything like that, to make sure you have all the information that you need that's on the filing.
So, for example, like a pay stub might be useful to have ready to go. What about like a utility bill? Is that usually needed? I know sometimes when you file, things are needed for your address and stuff. So
sometimes, I mean, if during the tax year, you know, you had a different address potentially, but not normally. No, it'd be really anything that shows your income, your wages, any tax that you withheld, things like that.
JJ, so the economy has been everywhere this past year, and you know that's something that the IRS is taking into account. How is the IRS going to deal with inflation when people are filing their taxes?
So the good news is that all the deductions that the IRS has basically built in for an inflation adjustment have all gone up tremendously. The deduction, as we indicated earlier, for whether you're single, head of household, married filing jointly, that standard deduction has gone up considerably. Also for those that pass away, hopefully no one does, but the estate lifetime exclusion is now up to almost $13 million. Also for depreciation, more is allowed related to that. But if you were to think through any of the normal kind of standard deductions, such as mileage rate, or for small business owners, or for travel rates and things, what the IRS basically will increase every year, but we saw pretty big increases. So that does definitely lead to less taxes, if you will, for pretty much everybody because of these inflation adjustments.
So they're trying to make it just a little bit easier and maybe relieve some of that stress as
Right.
we're in an uncertain economic future right
Sure.
now. So, Amanda, that kind of makes me want to bring up this next topic here when we're talking about people who are single taxpayers or married individuals filing separately. I know that there might have been some changes to that tax bracket. Are you aware of any of those changes and how it'll impact those who are filing?
Yeah, so JJ probably can add a little bit to this, but overall, I think a big change for tax year 2022 is the tax rate now dropped basically a quarter. So instead of 5%, it went down to 4.75%, which I think is a huge change for this year.
So that's an interesting point. Why did that change happen? Is that because of the pandemic stuff, or is this a different change that's just kind of unrelated?
Well, I'm sure that had some kind of background behind it, but I think the Oklahoma Tax Commission has always been very proactive in trying to make Oklahoma attractive compared to other states. You know, down in Texas, they don't have an income tax. But what was also huge is they also lowered the corporate tax rate as well, so we see a lot less in that regard. You know, as it relates to the single filer versus married filing separately, very similar to the IRS, all in a very positive, but there's more income that you can earn before it gets up in those higher brackets, and so that's something that's kind of built in already as well. So overall, really, even though we've talked a lot about these federal changes, if you look at the Oklahoma level, overall for the basically standard or average Oklahoman, tax would be less in 22.
Okay, well, so that's some good news then, right?
Yeah, that's
I
right.
think it'll bring some relief to some people. So.
Good. Yeah,
For sure.
yeah. We are, especially in a time of relief. Everyone's kind of preparing their money and saving it accordingly. JJ, I want to stay with you here. Let's talk about Oklahomans who might have small, side businesses or things like they create something and sell it online, or they're a freelancer or a contractor. How does filing work for those individuals?
So what I usually tell people, all of my clients, I've been doing this for about 30 years, is no matter how big or small your company is, but you should go to the Oklahoma Secretary of State and set up a company there. I usually recommend a limited liability company. Now, that's not going to do anything to dictate how you're taxed, because you then elect that with the IRS. But an LLC is like a chameleon, because it can be taxed as a sole proprietorship, it could be disregarded, an S Corp, partnership, a C Corp. So you're kind of giving yourself all the options, if you will. But an LLC in most states is going to also give you, just as it says in the name, some liability protection for your business. And then after that, getting registered with the IRS by getting an EIN, and then registering with the Oklahoma Tax Commission. So it'll be really the first step, but then also really what is nice about Oklahoma, the Oklahoma Tax Commission, is that for most things for small businesses, it's really going to follow what the federal law is. So tracking your income, tracking your expenses. Really, you had asked earlier if somebody should keep a utility bill, and Amanda's correct. Really, most would not need that. But for small business owners, if they have a home office, that might be a reason to keep a utility bill related to that. So overall, I think that small business owners, get with an advisor is probably also a big advice.
So what you're saying is get that LLC. That's important.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great. Well, Amanda, how does the state's earned income tax work right now? I know that the legislator had talked about changes in the special session, but those never happened. So what is it looking like right now?
So one of the biggest changes is now it is refundable. I think that would be, the biggest. Again, I think going back to what we were talking about just a minute ago, looking for relief for taxpayers and things like that. And so all of that information, we have the forms available, walk you right through anything that you need on our website.
Yeah, and I want to stay with you here. A lot of people, still file through paper, but is the Oklahoma Tax Commission still pushing for that electronic file? I mean, it's easier, right? It's got to be easier.
Yeah, it's definitely easier and more secure. I think that is the biggest piece. Obviously we want to make things easier, but in today's world, we want to make things more secure. And it gets directly to us. You don't have to worry about it going through the Postal Service or anything like that. Like, it's just uploaded, everything's secure right to our division.
JJ, let's move into some of the college demographic students here, students at universities in Oklahoma. There's a lot of forms that they need to be filing, and some of them might not be aware. I know I was a college student recently, and I loved 1098-T time because it meant I was going to have some money in my pocket. So what is your advice to students in Oklahoma?
So the great thing there is that this is going to be a tax credit. And so this one here, there's two types. There's the American Opportunity Tax Credit, and that is up to $2,500, and $1,000 of it can be actually refundable. And then we have the Lifetime Learning Credit, which is up to $2,000. And so on that Form 1098-T, it indicates what your qualified tuition expenses are, and then it also lists your scholarship, so you're going to be able to get that net. But any other college expenses that you have, that even if they're not on that 1098-T, such as books or your computers, that can be included. And that credit, as we indicated earlier, reduces down your tax dollar for dollar, which in most circumstances is better than a deduction. So the American Opportunity Tax Credit is only available for your first 4 years. After that, the Lifetime Learning Credit comes into play. Room and board is not included in those expenses. But if you don't mind, I was going to throw in, the Oklahoma Tax Commission, as well as the 529 plan here in Oklahoma, it allows for individuals to get a deduction putting money aside into an educational account, a 529 account. So it doesn't give you a deduction at the federal level, but it does give you a deduction down at the Oklahoma level. So up to $10,000 per individual can be deducted. Now up to $20,000 overall. If somebody has multiple individuals that they're putting that money in towards, gross tax-free, and then it comes out tax-free if used for qualified expenses.
Okay, yeah, and you said that you have to make an education account. Where do you do that? Do you do that with your university? Do you do that with the tax commission? Who is responsible for that?
What's awesome is that in the state of Oklahoma, they have a very dedicated department and a website, just 529. And so if you just Google Oklahoma 529, you go directly to there. Now you can go through your financial advisor either way, but they're going to go really to that same position. And so with that, it's very conservative and safe, because that's what it's meant to be, is just have some growth over time to have those dollars available when it's time for you to pull those monies out. Now, I'm going to mention in Oklahoma, you can use it K through 12 as well as for college. You do need to keep the money in there for at least 30 days to then have it count as a deduction in the state of Oklahoma.
Great. Well, parents, make sure you're doing that if you got the kiddos at home. Amanda, just real quick here, we're kind of running short on time, so I want to talk about deadlines and kind of extensions. Oklahomans might not have all their paperwork ready. They might be, April 15th is going to be here, or it's actually April 18th. April 18th, yes.
So sort of an extension.
Yeah, so if someone was wanting to file an extension, how long are those extensions, and when do they need to have that extension file turned in?
Yeah. So it kind of, I think, just depends really on what kind of extension you're looking for. But I keep going to our website, but honestly, that's the best place, because that will give you all the resources to what is specific to your scenario. But yes, again, April 18th, we highly recommend doing it now if you can. But online, paper, you can actually walk in as well, schedule an appointment.
So we got all the options.
Yeah.
Make sure, Oklahomans, that you're taking advantage of all your options, all your resources. That's going to be all the time that we have today. I want to thank you both for your insight and for being on this panel. Maybe once tax season ends, we get you guys back here to talk about everything. And is there just any last words that you guys would like to add?
I just want to throw on, Oklahoma makes it simple, because if you don't owe any tax, the Oklahoma Tax Commission will accept the federal extension and going online. And I just want to echo what Amanda said. OTC has a fabulous website, and especially in the instructions, you can probably get any answer to any question you have checking that out.
Amanda, just real quick, do you know that website off the top of your head so our viewers can get there?
Yes, so tax.ok.gov. If you
Perfect.
just type that in, it'll get you right there.
Well, we'll have a link there and make sure that Oklahomans can be directed. I want to thank you both again, and thank you for your time, and have a great week.
Thank you. You too.